Srivastava are the retired officers.
Of the Mangaluru Fest. Um, this session is going to be engaging in the sense, we've all heard about stories of war. We've heard stories about, Indian army fighting the army of the opposite, the enemy army. And these stories most often, for all of us, have been very, very thrilling. Okay? They give us some kind of a chill when we hear these stories. They give some kind of goosebumps when we hear these stories. And these stories have always been engaging. Now, whether we have heard the stories of, war in terms of the Northeast insurgency, or the Bangladesh Liberation War, or the Siachen conflict, the Kargil War, or even, for example, when the armed forces encountered the terrorists during the Mumbai attack. Now, even if you go back and watch any one of these documentaries, they are very, very interesting. They are very engaging. And we always feel, okay, we should also be a part of, fighting such battles in one way or the other. So here in this session, I present to you three people who will, besides the stories that we know in cinema or in the stories that we have heard, I have three people who will talk to you from their experience of being in the army. So what does it mean to be in the army? Because, the lives of the people in the army is a little complex. In the sense, they are human beings like you and I are, okay? And then they have a family like you and I have. And then they also stand before the enemies fighting the battle. So it's a complex web, their life is a complex web. And here I present to you three people who will tell you what that is, what that kind of a life is, from their experience, right? So to my left, I have Captain Sajita Nair, and to my right, I have Lieutenant Colonel Ankita Srivastava, and far right, I have Major Rama Sharma. I welcome three of you to the session. Thank you very much. So to begin with, I'll just ask them this question. The question is, we will start with Captain Sajita Nair. The question is, go back to your memory when you were in school, okay? As a young girl in school, what motivated you to join the army? Probably somebody told you the story of some major, some general in the army. Or maybe you read something somewhere, some book, some story, or maybe a cinema that you watched. Something must have impressed you, motivated you to, go and join the army and be an officer there. So can you share something about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph, and good morning to all of you. So coming to your question about motivation, I didn't have to really look very far, because in my own home, my dad served in the Air Force. So I remember you asked me when I was younger, right? So when I was in school, my dad had just placed this PCAP on the table, and I just took the PCAP and I wore it, and I looked into the mirror and I said, wow, now that looks smart. So that's where it all began. And I told my dad that I also want to be like you. I want to join the armed forces. And he was like, no, but girls cannot. I said, but why not? Girls can do everything. I can do everything. So he said, okay, we'll have to wait and see. And it's as though God answered my prayers. And as soon as I completed my graduation, the doors are thrown open for women to be in the armed forces. And I applied. So that is where my motivation came. It came right at home.
Right.
And also being in the Fauji background, in the Fauji atmosphere, I saw uniform all around me, and that really inspired me to be able to wear one myself one day.
That's nice. That's nice. So she has a family background. She comes from a family background where there are people in the armed forces. Now, imagine I would have gone home and I would have asked my parents that I would want to join the army. They would have definitely said no. because there's no way we can relate to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
Now, the point she made was, quite interesting. How could women go and join the army? Now, that could be a response that came to her. But even if I go and ask in my home, even if I go and ask them, they would say, no, why would you want to go and join the army? So that's interesting. Now we will go to Lieutenant Colonel Ankita Srivastava. Ma'am, what is your experience? What pushed you, motivated you to join the army?
Thank you, Dr. Joseph, and good morning to all of you. Okay, so I come from a very small town of Allahabad, and in those days, in the early 90s, there was nobody knowing about women in the Indian Army. So there was a serial called Udan, essayed by Kavita Chaudhary. That is, she donned the role of an IPS officer, Kalyani Singh. And that I used to get permission from my father to watch that serial once I do all the household chores. And I used to sit down in front of the Doordarshan. Doordarshan never sold any dreams, but I still bought one from that Doordarshan. And I decided that I have to be in uniform. And once the Indian Army took out the advertisement in the early 90s, I had just finished my graduation. I asked my father that I would like to join Indian Army. I was denied. Nobody allowed me to even fill up the form. So I fooled my parents in a smart way. I fooled them. They had fixed up my marriage. I requested the person whom they had chosen. It was a dowry-less marriage. In those days, dowry was a very big thing in the early 90s. So my dad had fixed up the marriage without consulting me. So I requested that person, please go and tell my father that let me go for this exam of Indian Army. So he went and told him, and my father allowed, okay, you can go. Just, okay, since you are saying, the boy was saying, I was allowed. And then after, there was no looking back. I created history by becoming the first girl from Allahabad to join Indian Army in 1993. And I'm the pioneer one to finish 14 years in the Indian Army, and after that, I'm here with you.
Nice to hear from you, ma'am. Major Rama Sharma, please. What motivated you to, join the army? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. Good morning to one and all. First of all, thank you very much to ask that question. I'm not as experienced as both of my panelists are there. I would be very frank here. It was not army or defense which, attracted me. It was the uniform which did. And the persona which, army people, army officers have. When I was very young, there was a serial based on Navy, Arohan, by Pallavi Joshi. So that naval uniform, how sartorious, impeccable they look in that uniform. So I always wanted to join Navy, but unfortunately I couldn't join. I joined Army. Due to that uniform, I married one naval officer. So on a lighter note, I could fulfill both of my dreams, to be an army officer and to be a partner of a naval officer. So this was my story, not, motivated by any story, childhood memories or so. But yes, it was the uniform which attracted me towards joining the defense forces. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Even as I'm talking to the people here, I have a question in my mind. Why do you think, there is this fear among the parents, among people at home, that there is some kind of a fear that, something, it's not so, life is not so easy to send their children to the army. In fact, parents are concerned. They want to ensure that their children are settled well, that they live a happy life. But then here, children go and tell them that, look, they wish to join the army, and then they have this fear. I'm sure people in the crowd as well. If your child comes to you and asks you, look, I'm going to join the army, I'm sure you would also react in the same way. There is some kind of a fear, tension, what would happen? These questions out of nowhere, get into your mind. Why do you think, can you reflect a little bit about that? Why do you think there's that fear among the family members about their children joining the army? Yes, ma'am.
So I think the fear mainly comes from a lack of knowledge.
Okay.
And I think that's the main reason why most people, because they don't understand what the army is or how the life in the army is. All they see is things in the newspaper and the news that kind of shatters them. But I'm sure, like you were talking about, aren't people in the army happy? I mean, look around. all of us. I mean, I think we're the most positive of people that are, because we face every kind of situation with a smile. And that is, I think, one of my key takeaways from the army is to look at life the way it comes to me and act accordingly. So I think it's just because of the lack of knowledge, and the more you know about it, and now if you hear us speak, I'm sure you'll not think anymore when your children come and tell you, I want to join the NDA, or I want to go to the OTA or INA. So I think it's just that. We need to have more awareness.
All right. Ma'am, what do you think? Why is that there is that fear?
I feel that up till now we've been only talking about wars and wars and wars.
Okay,
What India has been doing. We have not shown the good picture of the Indian army. So the parents in the civil culture, they only think there is only war inside and my child will not be safe over there. Basically, see, whenever in every forum we are discussing, or even the books which are written by our seniors, we agree that was the fact, that is the history, but then the layman person start feeling scared about that because of that lack of knowledge, as Sajita said. And secondly, I would like to tell everybody, army is a way of life. It's not a profession.
Right.
Army chooses you, you don't choose army.
Right. Ma'am, Major Rama Sharma, ma'am, what would you say?
So, answering about that, even my parents were very much reluctant when I wanted to join army, or I joined it. The main reason, as both of them has told, that it is like people think that now you are in army, now you'll go on war, you will die there. That is why they don't want to send their children to army, navy, air force, whatever they say. But I feel nowadays this perspective is changing a bit. I want my 4-year-old daughter to grow up and join air force. I don't know why. But yes, these days parents are getting more aware, and people know they are attracted towards people who are from Fauji background. And yes, I hope that in near future, all of you will be very much brave to send your kids to army or defense forces. Thank you.
That's wonderful. So we will go to the next round of reflecting on experiences of the army personnel who are with us. I would want them now to talk about their experience of being in the army, because as I said in the very beginning, most of us know armies, even as they also said, most of us know armies only in terms of war, bloodshed, bombs everywhere. I mean, that is how even our cinemas depict the heroical nature of the army personnel. That is the stories that we hear, the documentaries that we see are of such kind. Now, besides that, what is it? How does it look like to really be in the army as a army personnel? Whether it is the battleground situation or being as a support staff, whatever that is, as being an army officer, how does it feel like, Sajita ma'am?
It feels awesome.
You can quote an example, 1 or 2 examples. And
yes.
Then describe.
So the first thrill is, by the way, Ankita ma'am is my senior at the OTA, so she'll agree with me when I say the first time when you get when the pipping is done and you have your stars on your shoulders, it is one of the best highs that you can ever get. So,
Absolutely.
Yes. And then after that, when I went to the unit, it was 94 that I went to my first unit, and after a few months in the unit, my commanding officer thought that I could be made the company commander. Now, let me just explain what that means. Company commander is like an adjutant, or he or she is in charge of the welfare of the Jawans, the troops in the unit. So now I took charge. I was on the chair, but the acceptance was minimal because the troops, the menfolk, found it very difficult to see me, ordering them to see a woman at the helm. So that for them was a little difficult to accept, which I knew it was because I was the first woman officer in that unit. So I had to really work around that, and I said, no one will call me madam, everyone will call me Saab. I'm just Nair Saab, and that's it. I didn't want my gender to come in between my way of functioning in the unit. So that is one very important memory, and eventually people would just call me Saab everywhere, and for some reason or the other, it just worked, and I was able to earn the respect of the troops, which doesn't come easy, let me tell you, especially when you are a woman in a man's place, in a man's chair, in a man's work environment. So that was, I'm talking about the early 90s. So that was one experience that stands out for me, and the other one was when in 99, when the Kargil conflict was on. Our unit from Ahmedabad, we had to mobilize on the western front in Rajasthan. And all of us had to live in tents. So that was a totally different experience because physiologically women are different. And there are these physiological needs that, which sometimes put us in a spin as to how you go about, living in a tent in an open area. So, but as I said, we all are always very positive. So whatever situation is thrown our way, we work around it, we figure out what to do, and that's how I think all of us have been trained to be like that. So these are two experiences that stand out for me from my days in the army.
That's nice. So Ankita ma'am, what would you say? You can quote some examples and elaborately discuss.
Yes,
yeah.
I have multiple examples. I will need a whole day, but then I will tell about the most interesting ones. Initially, when I reported in my first unit as the first lady officer in Bengaluru, we were taken to the tailor to get our #1 uniform stitched. The tailor refused to stitch uniform because he said, "Saab ko bulao." Yeah. आप NCC में हो, आप cadet हो, I don't stitch your uniform of the NCC cadets. With great difficulty, we could convince him, I'm an officer and you have to stitch my uniform. You have to take my measurements. So it was, initially it was like that bad. Otherwise, I am the first lady officer to get posted to CI Ops, that is the counter-insurgency area. And there, I had a very small challenge, a very, very minuscule challenge for 3 years. Because I'm married to an Air Force officer, so I was not staying in the Army cantonment, I was staying in the Air Force cantonment, because those days, the Air Force senior person did not allow my husband to stay in the Army. Either he had to stay in the Army or I had to stay in the Air Force. So it did not work out. So I was staying in the Air Force camp, and every day I had to go to my office that was from the Ulfa-laden area, complete terrorism was there. So the only challenge that I had for 3 years, that reaching office alive and reaching home alive. That's it. This was the smallest challenge in my life I had each day in the time of no internet, no mobile. My husband wouldn't know whether I've reached office alive or not that day. Then in the evening we would meet and okay, I'm alive. That's it. Similarly, going during the Kargil War, we both are Kargil War veterans. And in 1999, I was also carrying my elder son. He was to be born, but I had to cross River Brahmaputra. And during those days, River Brahmaputra, I was sent on Indo-China border. Okay. And during those days, the Brahmaputra River was to be crossed in a huge ferry. And with our AK-47, on our soldier, on my shoulder, I had to climb up. The climbing was easy in that ferry. On the topmost rack, we had to sit. But getting down, there was no ladder. And my 2IC, my senior subaltern who was there, he was a commando, he said, you have to ensure that the gun does not touch the ground. You have to come down without... Now, gun is like a wife to a soldier. So for me, it was like a boyfriend to me or a husband to me. I jumped from there without giving a second thought that I will bruise my knees, break my knees, but with my gun in my hand, I did not allow my gun to touch the sand. My knees were bruised, I had blood, but I was proud that I could save my gun from touching the ground. That's the training we get. That's the training that makes a whole lot of difference, and these are n number of experiences that we have, which we really need to tell the
That's wonderful.
society.
I'm sitting here just imagining the whole scenario. How would that be if I was there? So I'm sure you're also imagining the whole thing, even as she's describing
Similarly, one more incident,
Yeah,
commanding a drill parade, an inter-battalion drill parade. Like we were initially, as she said, we were not accepted by the men folks, especially our juniors. Coming from the rural background, they were not ready. They had never seen a woman in uniform as their bosses. So that Sahab and that gender definitely was there. So we all were addressed as Sahab. Now, if you have to you have to command a platoon in a drill competition. Now the platoon is thinking that we will lose that competition because my voice, my command is not going to the first person behind me. It is not so loud or it is not that pitch. So I had to eat muleti. Muleti is something which we eat to clear our throat in the night. And in the night, I used to practice in an empty field. And the day of the competition, I gave a word of command in such a loud voice that the person sitting in, walking in the next platoon could also hear, and my platoon won the trophy of that drill.
Great.
So
That's wonderful.
this is how we have been doing.
Rama ma'am, what experience would you want to recollect and talk about?
Talking about the feeling which we feel while being in army is like, it's like a wave feeling. Sometimes it is, Josh is very high, means I can do anything for nation, I can die. But then sometimes when it comes to the family life, you know, separation from husband, since he is in Navy, I am in army. So that way sometimes it is on the very low phase. So, but then I'll say, if we talk about that amazing feeling which madam said, that it is an awesome feeling to be in army or an army person. For you, stars are in the sky, but for us, stars are on our shoulders. And now when I wear Ashoka on my shoulder, so it is all the most beautiful feeling on the earth. And especially when your parents see you that way, your child, my child will tell everyone, my mother's name is Major Rama Sharma. So that is the best feeling I can say. I am in medical field, so I does not have experiences like madam had, but yes, I am always there to support the wounded and injured soldiers, and I also get posted to the field postings, which I did not have till now. But yes, being a part of army or any defense force in that way is an amazing feeling. Thank you.
Right, that's wonderful. Now, there are some designations. For example, Sajita Nair ma'am is a captain.
Yes.
Yeah, and Ankita Srivastava, lieutenant colonel, then major, Rama Sharma. So, can anybody can take this question? What are these designations? Because as common people, we don't understand. We only have heard these names: lieutenant colonel,
Sajita.
major, captain. So, what are these designations? Can you talk about it a little?
I think here my senior would talk about that.
No, I'll you start. Sajita, you tell.
So these are just the ranks, like when you undergo the training and when you pass out from the Officers Training Academy. When we passed out in '94, there was a rank called Second Lieutenant, which is not there anymore now. So now, when they pass out from the officers, from the academies, they directly become lieutenants. So there's a whole hierarchy. So even now, when I see a senior officer, I just have to call him or him sir. It just becomes a part of your psyche. So it's so ingrained in you that even if someone is let's say one course senior to you, or even a few months senior to you, that person is a senior. And because army follows a very strict hierarchy.
Correct.
That's the requirement of the organization, because when who is the person commanding is for some reason not able to command, the next person has to take over the command and has to take charge of the situation. So that's why we have these ranks and we follow them very, very strictly. Right. There's a very strict hierarchy that we always follow in the army, and I think even after the army, even when you're retired, it still is there. It never leaves you. So
I'll say one thing on
yes.
that, ma'am. I had heard somewhere or, came across this word, as madam said, when they retire, then also they carry that rank. So I'll say a Fauji never retires. He or she re-attires. So madam, you are not retired, you are re-attired.
Yeah.
So I'll say ki once a Fauji is always a Fauji.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, from the experience of being in the army, now I will want to, familiarize you with the other phase of their life. They are also writers. Okay, they have written novels, stories, articles. Ma'am also has a blog. I just went through it. And Ankita ma'am is also a winner of the beauty pageant. I got to know about it. So they have different facets of life, besides being army officers. So my question to all the three of you is, what motivated you to write? As she was saying, having an AK-47 is one kind of an experience, and then pen in her hand and writing. I mean, are they related? How do you relate it? Or is it that, you stopped one thing completely and then started the other one? How would you want to talk about it?
So that's a very interesting question, the transition from the guns to the pens. So recently, Rama and I were at the AUDI Literature Festival, and our panel was picking the mightier weapon, so which I really like, because One weapon is the gun, and the other weapon is the pen. So right now, in this stage of our lives, we have picked up the mightier weapon, which is a pen. And let me tell you how that transition happened for me. I always loved writing. And when I was younger, I used to write journals, but that was it. And I was never confident. I never showed my writing to anyone because I thought, who is ever going to read this? It's not good at all. And it just continued. And while I was serving in the army, I used to write long letters. There were no telephones and no mobiles. So I used to write long letters to friends and to family. And they would write back saying, oh, describe this some more. How about this? How about that? You know, describe the food, describe the unit, describe the people around you. And I realized that I enjoyed writing. And I would, that positive feedback really helped me. And it was only much later at the Kala Ghoda Literature Festival in Mumbai. They had this open book pitch contest where you could pitch your book idea. And having served in the army, people used to ask me, hey, you served in the army, how was your experience? And I used to say, yeah, it's good. So, and then I thought people are so keen to know how my experience has been. And I said, this is a book. I'm not going to write it in smaller articles or anything. This has to be a book. And that's how at the Kala Ghoda Literature Festival, my idea was picked up by Harshit India. And I was just lucky that, I got published with Harshit India. By the way, this is the book. It's called She is the Jolly Good Fellow. And so it's about the initial struggles of women officers when they had just entered this domain. And then later on, the little confidence was built by, with the first book, a lot of feedback came in. And then I started writing. And the journey continues. Wonderful. So I have a lot of more books that I have in mind.
Ankita ma'am, you are also a writer.
Yeah.
So you have to your account so many articles, a novel also. So why?
Yes.
What motivated you to become a writer?
Okay, so when I was in college, then only I used to write a little bit, and I used to air my poems on AIR. And there was a magazine called Sarita, Manorama, Greshobha. All these magazines I used to write, that too without my father's knowledge, basically. Okay. Maybe I was an extraordinary person, I don't know.
You are.
I don't know. So my father was very against my writing. He would say, just do studies, become a doctor, and that's it. But maybe I was a rebel by nature, and I used to voice my ideas and thoughts in the form of poetry and poem and articles and all that. But yes, nobody was aware of all these things. This talent started coming out when I got posted to my unit. And every unit has a literary thing to be written about the unit in one of the journals. Now, they were army journals. I had to, so every time Commandant came to know that she writes, okay, you sit and write this. I was always given the duty of writing by order. I was always writing by order. Now, there was a centenary year celebration of Kanpur Club, for which my commandant, my Brigadier Yadav, was the chairperson. And that book had to be released. He ordered me to sit and write in his office, and I used to handwrite that. Times of India used to type it, and then the book came out, obviously with his name, but then I had done. Then after I left army, I realized I have got so much of masala in my head and so much to tell to the world. Whenever I used to talk, I used to fall short of time, not words. I had so many words. I thought, let me write the book only so that people can read my book. And then the turning point came when I went into Gladrex Mrs. India beauty pageant. And then I won the Most Vivacious Woman Award. That is the time I realized I have to tell about how a male-looking army officer became a beautiful woman officer in that pageant. That journey, that transition was very interesting and very unique. And then I wrote this book called Olive Green to Beauty Queen. This is the book which people loved reading. And I've been very honest about my flaws, my ignorance, my incapabilities, and accepting whatever was on the platter. Right. So that is how I became a writer.
That's very interesting. Rama ma'am, what made you to, pen down things?
If we are talking about the transition, so I'm not yet in transition. I'm doing both things simultaneously as I'm still serving and writing. So talking about the starting of writing, I have started writing at the age of around 10 years of my age. I have been a Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya student, if any of you have heard that. So in that school, what they do, that they are very much into extracurricular activities. Every student will catch something or else. Somebody will catch debate, poetry writing, or something or else. So I had written when I was in class 6th or 7th, one poem on Vande Matram. So after that, this journey started. I used to take part in various school, inter-school and national level events. But then I never wrote or never collected my poetries. So once I came into Forge, so in unit programs, in station programs, I started reciting my poetries. I'm not into writing of novel or any book that way, but I write only Hindi poetries, and on different topics I have written. My first book just released in month of October, named after my 4-year-old daughter, that is Shravya, which means the musical tone, and it is available on Amazon, Flipkart. I'll just show you. This is my book, Shravya, Dhwani Alfazon Ki. Because the name of my daughter is Shravya and her voice is obviously has to be very musical. So thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Nice hearing that. A question to Sajita ma'am and Ankita ma'am. Now, since you're not anymore in service, why? What made you, to think that, okay, here is where I have to draw the line. Here is where I have to stop. What made you do that? Sajita ma'am, yeah.
That's a little personal one, so.
Yeah, but because, it's an inspiring thing to be an army officer.
Right.
But as human beings, we would want to, stop and then continue our lives further.
Correct. For me, that point came when, as a woman, we go through these phases. So when it was motherhood, was the time that I decided I need to prioritize and probably give more time to the little one, because he at that point of time required me more. And so that's how having said that, my husband served in the Navy. So he would be out on long sailing assignments. 1 month, 2 months, they're off. So there's no one around. So if I also went to work, I wouldn't be able to manage. So it was a very personal choice. It was a little hard on me, but yeah, sometimes in women's lives, we just have to make the choice. But again, having said that, I don't regret that, because then another phase began in my life, and I started rediscovering myself. So I guess that's where I made the decision.
So her child has a very good mother who can probably push him into the defense in the future.
He's doing ecology, so I wonder.
Okay. That's nice. So, Ankita ma'am, what made you think, okay, here is where I'll draw the line. I'll continue my life
you said,
in other phase.
Here is where I will stop. You use the word stop. So I would like to correct myself. Right. I'm unstoppable. I didn't stop. I will never stop. I will continue moving ahead with my full blaze, because I did 14 years. That is the time women were not given permanent commission at that time. So I was born a little earlier, basically. So otherwise it came in 2020. I had to hang my military boots just because there was no permanent commission at that time. And then I still have no regrets about the fact that I was born very early. I am very happy that whatever I have achieved in those 14 years, I am making use of it in my present life, and I'm also giving back to the society wherever possible I can. So I turned into an author, I'm working in State Bank of India as well, and I became the first General Manager Security in State Bank of India right now. So I know that my worth is coming from Indian Army, and that is going to keep on making me move forward. I'm unstoppable.
That's wonderful. That's nice to hear from her. So we have spoken so far. I've had the members from the Army talking about their experience of being in the Army, and as writers, as members of family, managing their family and so on. I'll want to open the audience for questions. So for the next 10 minutes, we will spend time asking them to engage with your questions.
My question is to Rama ma'am. My question is to Rama, ma'am.
That's Rama.
As a serving officer right now, how do you see the situation that your seniors have faced, transitioning in the current context of male officers or the male subordinates, adhering to your orders or getting a control or I would say, how do you make them work? How do you achieve that? That's my question.
Thank you for the question. Actually, I would say that we are living into a male-dominating society, and matter of the fact is that male will always have that little, hesitance to accept a female boss wherever you go. It's not only in army. You go outside also. You discuss with civil people also. They also say the same thing. But in army there is little strict rules. You have to salute your senior. So initially when madams were, in that phase, that time it was all the more difficult because ma'am was the first women officer, first company commander. So, first time seeing a lady in uniform itself was I think, big deal. But nowadays, I think situation is improving a bit after, 14 years of service and so many years of service. Nowadays, male are, accepting female bosses. No, I don't know, all of the males in the hall would know better in their heart. But yes, I think the situation is getting better. Nowadays, people salute also. And, they are accepting us as we talk about so much about women empowerment and all. So probably in near future, we'll see more female bosses everywhere. Like you have one at your home. So thank you so much for that question.
So that Saab is still used?
Saab is still used. Yes.
It's been 31 years now.
31
years.
Namaste, ma'am. 2 or 3 days back, there was a playback singer, Srimati Chaitra, ma'am. Chitra. Her name was Chitra. She was a playback singer. She came up with the sentence saying that light a diya and do Rama Japa. And it on Monday, that's Rama Janmabhoomi. And she was trolled so badly that she had to delete her tweet in Twitter. Like, she was targeted so badly. Now you, all the ma'ams were in a good post, high post. Then now you are having a writing skill. Writing your point of view, writing your personal experience. Have you ever experienced such kind of people or a gang who targets you or who try to bring you down? Maybe Chitra ma'am was not so strong enough emotionally, so she had to delete. I wouldn't have deleted because I didn't say anything wrong.
Okay, so you would like to answer? Okay, so I would like to answer. Firstly, we are taught in the Indian Army to align with the environment. This is the basic thing that I have learned in my life, to align with the existing environment. We merge ourselves into the environment. We adapt to the environment. We do not stand like a sore thumb. And by virtue of having a rank in front of our name, whatever I write, firstly we write with lot of thought into it, that it is not offending anybody. I'm very much stressing on the fact that it should not offend any sector of the society. We balance our words with, this is what we have been doing in the Indian Army. We have been talking to n number of people. We are commanding people of different religion, different backgrounds. We have to put them on one pedestal. So whatever we write on a social media, which has become a nuisance nowadays, we balance our words. And the rank in front of our name does not allow most of anybody to take panga with us, basically. That's what I would say. And secondly, if it's something sometimes happens, sometimes maybe I might in the Josh, I have offended somebody, we are the first ones to apologize. And apology is always accepted by the masses. That's it.
When I'm listening to you, madam, a simple question. Creativity is what you are into now, writing. Is it something which is inborn or something which you harness as you be?
Thank you, sir, for that question. I would say creativity means to create, so it cannot be inborn. It can be little, God's gift, somebody is, into painting and all. But being in Forge, what we does, we are, into so many things. Like you are an army officer, you have to do your army things, but simultaneously you will be arranging a party, you will be into the decoration, flower decoration, means you have to supervise and you have to see everything. And sometimes you have to be, give hands on that thing. So I was writing since very young age, so you can say that was little, God's gift. But army has helped me. Like there was an order, you have to write, I am posted to Jaipur. So there was an order, you have to write a poem by evening about Jaipur. So that was by order. So that way we are meant in that way in the army that it becomes, to create. Creativity, that is what they are saying. Thank you.
But I think adding on to Rama's point, I'd also like to say that, when you write, let's say when you're talking about writing a novel, most people I think will not realize it, but writers go through a lot of inner struggle and insecurity, and they work very, very, very hard on their craft. What is a plot? How do you devise a story? What words to use to attract what kind of audience? So these are things you learn along the way as you're writing.
Yeah.
So I think we also have to work on the craft. We have some with us, and we continuously are working on our craft.
It's a continuous evolution process. Continuous.
Very good. Thank you, officers. I have a question to Major Sharma. So far we are talking about some of the challenges women officers have faced. And now there are a lot more young girls looking forward to join the army. So if you could highlight some changes that they can look forward to when they join the army.
I would rather pass this question to ma'am. Ma'am would be able to answer it better with the experience.
Okay, so I'll answer. Changes are definitely there. Firstly, the vacancies have opened in NDA, that is the after 12. Earlier it was not there. Then the other fields are also opening. Even RIMCs, the SANIC schools, they have also opened the entry for the women cadets. And now the environment after 31 years, it has become very adaptable. The gentlemen also have adapted to the fact that the women are working with them shoulder to shoulder. So there is no gender biasness as such. People have adapted. The infrastructure, for example, washrooms, toilets, or even tents, everything has come up in a most acceptable norms in the Indian society. So things are much better. And I will not say that the things were bad at my time. We as a society were all evolving. We as a society were evolving, so was the Indian Army and the Indian Defense Forces basically. So no complaints, no regrets, we have evolved. Now at the 8th year of my service or the 10th year of service, one of the brigade commander asked me, would you like to come to exercise location? And if there is no washroom or a toilet being made over there, what will you make an excuse that you don't want to come to the exercise? I said, no, sir. I will make sure that my subordinates dig up a pit whole night and create a washroom by morning. I'm going to be there. So that is my responsibility to get the work done as an officer. So now things are definitely more streamlined. So all the girls here can think of joining Indian Army.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Adding on to her question, I have a question. So there are many youths and young youths who are interested to join, but they can't meet the physical requirement just like me. So what are your thoughts and inputs?
So Sajita, would you like to answer?
No, please.
Okay, so the physical requirements. So I coming from a very small town of Allahabad and my father not allowing me to do any kind of a coaching, any preparation, I knew that I have to qualify the physical standards. So what I did, I made an imaginary circular track on my square terrace and I started running at 4 o'clock in the morning. So no excuses. If you want a thing, you cannot say we do not have that physical standard, so that is why I cannot join army. Arey Baba, do it. Who's stopping you? Start running from here to your house only.
And the
No, there's nothing. So the physical standards, the heights, of course, is there.
You
No,
are
but
eligible.
But you are eligible.
You are eligible,
You
by
are
the way.
eligible. Let me tell you. So think about it. No, you are eligible. Don't worry.
And another thing is your attitude, the mental
Yes.
makeup needs to change from can I, of self-doubt. Can I run 10 kilometers? You have to make it I can. The first thing is in your head. And then you'll be able to run 10, 20, 30, however, how much ever.
See, we all are not aliens. We are
Exactly.
simple human beings
Exactly.
coming from the same society. But we dared. That's it. Yes.
Jai Hind, ma'am.
Jai Hind.
I'm Emmanuel from Department of Geopolitics and International Relations, Manipal University. So I have two questions. In your opinion, what are some of the biggest misconceptions and stereotypes about women in the military, and how do you address them in your writing? And the second question is that, how do you believe advancements in technology and research can contribute to improving your experience and opportunities for women in the military? What are the significant areas that we can research on and improve your experiences in the field?
Sajita, you take on.
Sorry, what was your first question? I'll take that on.
You can come forward.
Misconceptions. All right, we get that. Okay. So what are some of the misconceptions of women in the military, women in the armed forces? Yes, I can answer it from the time that I served and back in the 90s, and which I think has changed quite a lot in today's world. But back then, it was just that, how can this woman, or how can she do it? Can she live in an exercise location? Can she command 600 men? Right? So it was just the mental, I would not blame anyone, but it was just the societal conditioning as to men did all these, the army, and this was a very male-dominated workplace, and women could not have fit into that workplace. So that was one of the major challenges, and it was just in the mind of the people. And right now, when I look around, I find that it is changing, and more and more males are accepting and supporting women in whatever they want to do. And I think it is just in transition. We have not arrived yet. We are just getting there.
Yeah.
I would like to add on to that. Misconception, what I used to feel before I joined army, people think that we cannot manage home. But trust me, no women can manage home, family, workplace, husband, kids, buddies, and garden, everything better than
yes,
for the,
multitasking.
lady.
Yes,
That's
yes.
what I want to clear. So all the young boys can marry any army officers if you get a chance to. Thank you.
Will you allow me to make a comment and a half?
Please, yeah.
Quickly, two things. 1.5 comment. I don't think Captain Sajita meant that in that sense. But when you talk of the pen being mightier than the sword, as someone who's wielded both, I would be very cautious about saying one is mightier than the other. I would think that both of them are mighty depending on the circumstances where you decide to use them. And I'm bringing it out because this is sort of a romanticized notion that we have often in our country taken this and learned, we've lost because of that. So do not estimate the power of the sword, even as you give the pen its proper place. So that's very important. The second important point, I think Colonel Ankita has alluded to it. One of the reasons that earlier people, you talked of Arohan, one of my acquaintances. She's now a merchant Navy captain of the largest tanker in the world. But she couldn't join the Navy despite seeing Arohan and Pallavi Joshi, because in late 80s, there was no way you could join the Navy. But I think Colonel Ankita makes a good point, and Captain Sajita, that what has happened now over the last few years, which is very good, is we have created an assembly line for women to join the armed forces.
Absolutely.
It is through Sainik schools, through RIMCs, through NDA, through a lot of other entries, opening them, opening up to permanent commission, opening more branches of all services to women, creating infrastructure for women, having women Agniveer in the armed forces. Yeah. So what is happening is, end of the day, it is not about individuals. It's about creating a conveyor belt in the system. Absolutely. So the Indian society is now created that conveyor belt from where more women will join the armed forces. Absolutely. And I don't think anyone in this hall should be discouraged. We would want very many more to join the forge. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
So are there more questions? Please, please. We'll take just one question and we will finish. Yeah.
You can catch us outside
sure,
also.
Yeah.
Jai Hind, ma'am. I'm Shreyas from Mangaluru University, from the Department of Biotechnology. So my question is that you all are from the defense, and you spoke of how strict the defense system is, and it's for the well-being of the system itself. But my question is that sometimes when your seniors order you something, you just cannot question it. If they ask you to jump to the well, next moment you have to be in the well. So this being the situation, there are sometimes even when the seniors are wrong, they might be wrong, and you might be knowing that it is wrong to do something. And in our system, we have so many outdated rules and laws, which is from the, Her Majesty's time, which is not appropriate for this, this timeline. So, at that moment, what do you do? Because the answer you get from your superior is that, this is how it is being followed. But being in a responsible position, while knowing that is wrong, how do you react to it or respond to it? And how can you bring about a change? The question is, how can you bring about a change? Yeah, that's my question.
Okay. Okay, so you rightly said some of the rules, I would say, are from the Her Majesty's time. Absolutely. And Forge is all about taking orders from the seniors and accepting. So the basic concept the army works upon is, in the peacetime, where we are just doing the training or doing the administrative jobs, that is the time we take orders from the senior, right, wrong, whatever, because the more you sweat in the peacetime, the less you bleed in the war. So there is a structural formation kind of a thing. Now these orders may be wrong in the peacetime where there is no war, but at the war, this order may not be wrong. The same order, see which organization will have individuals ready to get killed in a war. Who volunteers to join a profession? Okay, we are ready to get killed. We might be. We are volunteered to join this profession. And in war, you don't question your senior. That's it. Because ultimately we are preparing for the war, obviously. In any kind of a situation, and that goes in your head so much that you generally don't question. And in fact, senior officer is sitting here, in fact, sir is sitting here. He would also add to this. Sir, please.
I'll borrow that thing, 1.5 comment. So, the half comment is I am very proud of all three of them. The second part is about what you said, Her Majesty's time. Let me give you an example. Last week you saw the Home Minister tabling 3 bills, 1850, 1900, some acts, Indian Penal Code, CRPC, Indian Evidence Act. When I joined the army in 1978, and Jayachandran sir is here, we are both colleagues of the same time, we used to have something known as the Manual of Indian Military Law. What is this Indian Military Law? Because there was a separate law for the British and there was a separate one for the Indians. We were the first ones to change it. And by the time we both rose to a level of captains, we had the Manual of Military Law, not the Manual of Indian Military Law. But see what has happened outside. It has taken 40 years more to come to that level. So Her Majesty, we are not in love with her.
Should we close? Yeah. One last question and we will close. Yeah.
Jai Hind to all. I come from the software industry and I have worked with many colonels in the army. Like a lot of colonels are there. They are very good administrators. So my question is, today if you ask anybody, like children or maybe little bit grown-ups, they generally, if you ask them who is your superhero, they would name somebody from Avengers or some other movies. But I've spoken to most of these colonels. I've heard a lot of stories from them related to wars and all. But I personally feel that they are the real heroes. But in society today, like people have no idea about how difficult it is, how our defense personnel, they go through so many difficulties, like in Siachen or in the deserts. So since you all are authors right now, so do you have any idea or plans through which you can make everybody, like commoners, especially the younger generation, feel that the real superheroes are here?
Yes.
That is the defense personnel. And the rest all is fiction. Yes. Because present generation, they feel that fiction is reality. They would say Iron Man or something like that. These are all, fiction. So it really doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
So can, we bring about any change? As a person from the civil society, so can we do something about it? I'm not an author, but how can I bring about a change?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Would you like to answer? I'll just give you a small answer on this. Yes, we are all going to do that, and we are doing it, and in future you'll be reading, and that's why we are here. That's why we are here. This is something, a platform where many can connect with us in this platform. And my next book, which is coming up, is No Woman's Land. You must have not heard about this term, No Woman's Land. It is all about my autobiography, about the insight, what all struggles I have gone through to become an officer, and how did I sustain myself in that tough training, and then new challenges in the unit life. And then finally, when I hung my uniform, how did I restart? If you've seen this movie 12th Fail, there's a restart button. So how did I restart? This is going to come, and in future, we are, as authors, going to bring stories who are the real heroes of the nation.
I would add on that. First of all, it's very nice to hear Jai Hind from the people from, different backgrounds. Very soothing to ears. Okay, so talking about the forge is like a sea. You know the depth. You don't know the depth until you dive in. So, but then I'll say it is the responsibility of the parents also. As parents, it's your responsibility to tell your children about forge, to show them some series, some movies, or some, read some books or stories related to Fauji heroes. Like these days we are getting many movies like Sher Shah, and Fighter is coming, Tejas movie is there. So it's not that people don't recognize Fauj. Nowadays they are recognizing that Faujis are real superheroes. So you need to, teach your children, or we need to teach our children or our colleagues that who are real heroes. They should identify that, other than the heroes which are fictional. Thank you.
Right. And also adding on to that, there are books like India's Most Fearless, wherein we talk about the real heroes from the army. And similarly, I want to, in the future, work on the naval heroes as well. Because right now when we talk about defense, we're talking only about the army. There is the Air Force and there is the Navy as well. And we want stories from the heroes from the Navy and Air Force as well. And as authors, we all are working towards that. And I'm very sure we'll have our books coming out soon so you all can read. And we'll have our own real life heroes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you had a, please.
Felt that the conceptions about army personnel have changed in the last decade of your own assessment?
Sir, sorry for the interruption. Sir, I think they are available to speak later on the Heritage 32 in AUDI 3 too.
So I thank Captain Sajita Nair ma'am for giving us your time. Lieutenant Colonel Anita Srivastava, thank you for giving your time. Major Rama ma'am, thank you. Thank you, kind audience, for your questions. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you too, sir. Now to honor the 3 Sabs on the stage, along with the other Sab, may I request Lieutenant General Vinod Khandare, who has volunteered to honor them. So, a male Sab honoring the female Sabs. All the 3 Sabs. Can I have a big round of applause for all the Sabs on the stage there? Lovely moment. Lieutenant General Vinod Khandare honoring Major Rama Sharma, followed by, okay, now it is Major Rama Sharma. That first one was Lieutenant Colonel Ankita Srivastava. Next it will be Captain Sajita Nair. We had the 3 Sabs. You just resemble Ma Durga, Ma Lakshmi, Ma Saraswati there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was Dr. Harshit Joseph. Audience, please note, next schedule was Startups, A Path to New Journey. Now there's a slight change in the session. The session which was scheduled at 2:15 will be conducted now at 12 here. That is the Content 2.0 Future of Digital Discourse. That will be conducted now. We have just advanced the session. Before audience moving, the quiz time. Captain Sajita Nair, she had